maybe a question that I don't think's been asked yet. Putin was asked 2 weeks ago if the war between Ukraine and Russia would have happened under Trump. He said, no, it wouldn't have happened. So for you, would the war and the Hamas attack have happened if President Trump was president instead of Biden?
I don't know. It's a good question, but you said something about Biden that I should just point out the facts. In fact, President Biden supported us in the beginning of the war after this horrific massacre, and he came here, and I very much appreciate it. But as the war progressed and the vilifications of Israel, the distortions on the media began to pile on, he began to take a different course. And when we were just 2/3 of the way, 3/4 of the way in Gaza, I said we have to go into that last position that they had, where they had organized battalions. It's in a city called Rafah, in the southern part of the Gaza Strip. And he said, don't go there. And he said, if you do go there, I'll smack an embargo on you. Now, you're fighting a 7-front war, and all of a sudden you're slapped with an embargo of weapons. That was tough. And I said to President Biden, who I've known for many years, I respect the fact you're the president of the United States, but I'm the prime minister of the one and only Jewish state, and we've been fighting to survive in our small place under the sun. It's been a battle that has been going on for 3,500 years. So I'll have to do what we have to do. And then a few days later, Tony Blinken, who was the Secretary of State, came to Israel, and he said, the president is serious about this embargo. And I said, Tony, I know it's serious because you stopped all the weapons. You slow walked them before, but now you've stopped them. And then I said to him this. He said, well, how are you going to do it then? I said, Tony, we'll fight with our fingernails if we have to, but we're not going to leave. It's like the Allies would leave a quarter of the German battalions in place and not go into Berlin. And I said, would you take that? Would you take that, Patrick? Of course you wouldn't. So we didn't take it either. We did it against the opposition of the American president. So much for Israel controlling the United States. We don't. But we do seek to control our destiny. And when somebody commits a crime like they did on October 7th, decapitating our men, raping our women and then murdering them, burning children alive in front of their parents, taking 255 hostages, grandmothers with their grandchildren, this horror, and pledged to do it again and again and again. Well, what choice do we have? We have to fight them and their Iranian patrons, and we did just that. We did that first with American help, then with American opposition, and when President Trump came in, with great American help, which I truly appreciate. And I think President Trump does what he thinks is good for America. I don't think that. I know that for a fact. He's a great leader.
So going back to that, I want to clarify this again. So you said you don't know whether Hamas October 7 attack would have happened under Trump. So you're saying Hamas would have had the audacity, even under Trump, to have attacked, or no, they would have feared him?
Probably not, but it's hard to say with these maniacs. You can't quite tell. I think Iran would have been more careful, and Iran is the patron. Would they have controlled completely their client, their proxy? Maybe not. Maybe they would have, possibly. But look, I think President Trump has changed the posture of America. America is back on the global scene. America is resumed its powerful position among the nations. And I think that's for the good. Because I think one of the tragedies for the Jewish people was that in the first half of the 20th century, America was not the dominant global power. And the worst tragedy in the history of mankind, the World War II, took place, and I don't think it was accidental. And the worst tragedy in the history of my people, the Holocaust, took place. But in the second half of the 20th century, America emerged as the dominant power on the earth, and Israel came into being. And as a result, our history has changed. We no longer are massacred with impunity. We now have the ability to defend ourselves, and we are very fortunate to have an ally, a strong ally, the United States, with successive presidents. We've had our differences, as I said, but overall, there's been a very strong alliance through all presidents. But it's never been stronger. It's never been so intimate and so powerful as it is now under President Trump.
So you've been prime minister while President Clinton was in the White House, Biden, Obama, and Trump twice. Is there an element of unpredictability with President Trump that you don't know necessarily what he's going to be saying next? Or do you notice a pattern of, similar approaches that they all take?
Well, look, I think President Trump has an enormous capability. He's irreverent to received wisdom, to traditional thinking. He says, well, let's look at it again, And sometimes he can surprise you. I'll tell you, I had conversations with him when he cuts to the chase on something, and he says something that no one before said. A lot of people felt in their gut, but they didn't have the guts to say it out loud. And he does. And I find that very refreshing. And also, I think that unpredictability is not a bad thing to have. Not a bad thing to have with sometimes with your allies, and certainly with your enemies.
I want to show you this clip. This is a clip of you and the president. You guys are standing right next to each other, and you give a look that you almost didn't know he was going to say this. And this is just personally for myself. I'm curious, did you know the president was going to be saying this? Go ahead and play the clip, Rob.
As far as Gaza is concerned, we'll do what is necessary. If it's necessary, we'll do that. We're going to take over that piece, and we're going to develop it, create thousands and thousands of jobs, and it'll be something that the entire Middle East can be very proud of. But everybody feels that continuing the same process that's gone on forever, over and over again, and then it starts, and then the killing starts, and all of the other problems start, and you end up in the same place, and we don't want to see that happen. So by the United States, with its stability and strength, owning it, especially the strength that we're developing and developed over the last fairly short period of time, I would say really since the election, I think we'll be a keeper of something that is very, very strong, very powerful, and very, very good for the area, not just for Israel, for the entire Middle East. Very important. And we'll, again, have thousands of jobs.
Can you pause it? You gave a look where you weren't expecting the president to say that, as if it's going to be our land. Were you surprised by what the president said here?
No, actually, I wasn't. But I can tell you that he said something else there. He said, and that surprised the world. And I thought, again, he cut to the chase. He said, why are Gazans locked in this area, which is just used as a base for attack against Israel for its destruction? That's what the de facto Palestinian state in Gaza was. It was a base for Israel's destruction. It has no other purpose. And it lived under this horrible tyranny, this terror tyranny of Hamas. So he said, why not give people a choice? I mean, in other war theaters, in Ukraine or in Syria or in Afghanistan, millions left if they wanted to. In Gaza, they're locked in. Nobody allows them to leave. And he says, give them a choice. If they want to leave, let them leave. And for those who stay, rebuild Gaza. I thought that was actually a very sensible thing. And it's not our goal now to depopulate Gaza and all these other nonsenses that people say. Our goal is to free Gaza, free it from Hamas, free it from Hamas tyranny and terror. And we now have Gazans. I'll bet you don't know this, Patrick. We now have Gazans fighting Hamas. And they say, thank God you're here. They didn't dare do that until the final stages of this war, which we're in now, because they know that they won't be slaughtered. So they fight. They actually fight Hamas. They fight these monsters. They call them monsters. And they're joining up with Israel. And I think that's a sign of hope, because we can have, once we finish off Hamas, Gaza can have a different future. Israel and Gaza can have a different future. And as far as I'm concerned, if America wants to come in and invest, that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
So you would be okay if America takes over Gaza and it becomes something that we control. You'd be okay with that?
Yeah, but it's an American choice. I don't want to get into that.
But you would be okay with that. So even if America chooses,
look, I'd be okay with any governance that civilian governance in Gaza that doesn't teach its children to annihilate Israel, doesn't pay terrorists. That's what not the Hamas do only. It's what the Palestinian Authority, the other side of the Palestinian people does. They pay terrorists. The more Jews they kill, the more they pay them. and doesn't launch terrorists. You know, there are several ideas how to do that. But I think that America's help here is indispensable.
Yeah, that would be very interesting, because if all of a sudden that becomes U.S. territory, and U.S. now has interest in making sure there's not chaos there, that could actually be very effective for a lot of people in the community. I lived in Iran for 11 years. So if you like this clip and you want to watch the entire interview, click here to watch it. And if you may have any questions for me, you want to ask me directly, download the app and ask me the question there. I will respond back to 100% of people that ask me the question. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye, bye-bye.